AI is ushering a new Renaissance era. The first billion-dollar company with one employee is going to happen this year.
AI being an unbelievable efficiency improver to truly a job replacer.
AI built into these efficiencies is that we are able to get to failure or to success much quicker than we ever have.
You know, it's not going to make you an expert overnight.
Welcome back, everybody, to AI with Bri, where we explore how leaders learn, leverage, and lead with AI. I'm Brian Denstead, and this show is about moving past the hype and into real-world impact. Today's episode is really special. It's the first time we're having multiple guest leaders on the show with us, all from Escape Velocity, a team that works at the intersection of innovation, culture, and execution. Danny Mendoza brings the marketing lens, and Michael Heiser helps shape how people learn and engage. And Eli Gutman lives in the weeds of AI product strategy. And together, they're helping organizations not just talk about AI, but actually do something with it. So let's start with the learning segment, guys. Thank you all for being here. From where you sit, what organizations are consistently misunderstanding AI right now?
You want to take that one, Mike?
I think Danny's got a thought.
No, that's a great question, right? It's such a big question. Who's misunderstanding it? I think overall AI has set, right, to be really defined and say, here's the one specific way to use it. So we're early. I think every organization, depending on whether you're an enterprise that has a global presence or you're just an entrepreneur, what I think is awesome is AI's flexibility. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that anybody's quite missing the mark yet. I think we're all just really curious trying to find it.
Absolutely. I think I saw a video just the other day of I think it's this new trend that's happening. Like, if you know what OpenClaw is and 11 Labs and, just list these 10 or 15 AI products out, then you're on the cutting edge. And most people don't know what those things are, right? So really, really, really true. I want to say nobody's really left behind. It's still an easy game for you to catch up in this space. Yeah. So, Michael, when you're thinking about like programs and experiences around AI, where do people get stuck first? What should they be learning?
I think you get stuck with the overwhelm, right? It's like drinking from a fire hose. They hear the topic AI and they get all this information about XYZ, and this is why it's taking our jobs, and these are the fears and all this stuff that they put into it. So it's the initial gut reaction that either number one, I'm behind, or number two, it's just something that I can never get into because it's too technical, blah, 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 blah. So the first step, I think, is just knowledge. Just get familiar with the systems that are out there. Pick one. Like, it doesn't really matter. There's so many tools out there. Actually, what I want to talk about for the Learn section specifically, Notebook LM, like what a great starting point. Yeah. I mean, you basically upload a bunch of documents to this system, and it can break it down into teaching points for everything. So I want to get into AI, or I want to get into whatever, shoe manufacturing. It doesn't really matter. You plug in all of this information, it becomes an expert instantaneously. And then not only can you learn by reading through and questioning it, but it can also do audio, which is amazing. So for the people that are always on the go, the podcast listeners like your audience, I highly recommend anything that they don't understand, plugging it into that. And we kind of incorporate that with the companies that we work with too.
I love it. That's an excellent point. I probably use that program once or twice a week myself to help with CTO executive level reporting, right? So that's notebooklm.google.com. It's a free product. I think Google's secretly going to play the long game and crush it with some of the tools that they're rolling out. But excellent call out there. Eli, I'm trying to tie it in. You and I are the geeky AI ones here. Like, what is something you've really learned recently about AI and maybe product strategy that is changing maybe how you think about this world we're heading into?
Wow, that's the fact that you dovetailed it with product strategy really makes the entire difference, and I can tell you why. Right? If we're talking about the tools that people should be aware of, we made a giant leap in just the last 3 months. We went from AI being an unbelievable efficiency improver to truly a job replacer. And
Yes.
that's when we shifted from AI being, what was agentic AI 3 weeks ago? Agentic AI was one bot communicating with another bot and being able to take that data and put it into somewhere where a human being would be interacting with it. That was agentic AI. With Claude Bot and with Claude Code, or whatever Claude Bot's calling itself now,
That's right.
we have shifted into an arena where it is capable of controlling anything on your computer. You can use MCP infrastructure, so that's Model Context Protocol. What is Model Context Protocol? AI is aware of whatever files you want it to have access to. And thus, it makes it better. A lot of people know when you ask a bot something, it can sometimes give you, good response only 8 or 9 out of 10 times. What makes it 99.7? Model Context Protocol. So how does that work with product strategy? Well, I can't share my screen right now. I don't want to bore you, but I had Claude Work given access to all of my research documents and made a product roadmap for the next 2.5 years while I was sleeping last night.
Yeah.
And so, it literally just went feature by feature, did competitive research, came up with a business value assessment next to a effort score for engineering, based it on confidence for other product roadmaps for similar competitors out there, and then scored it all on a product management software. So,
Phenomenal.
the idea that we need to have these large teams to be able to do this is just a thing of the past. And the cool part for me is that I don't look at this like, oh no, like there goes the jobs. It's like, no, it's like, oh my God, we just democratized something that used to be a multi-million-dollar IT teams at major firms. Now anyone has access to this. Like the entire SaaS platform model has been flipped on its head. And to me, that's the coolest thing in the world. And so, I'm always excited to talk about this stuff. And as far as encouraging where people can learn these things, I taught all this stuff to myself, right?
Yeah.
I used AI to teach myself AI, and I know that anyone else can and should.
So many little nuggets I want to unpack with you. I have the Mac Mini set up as well with my Claude bot running as well. But I think it was Y Combinator just announced their next cohort of what they're looking for is all about product strategy. And I keep saying it multiple times on this podcast since I've started it, that AI is ushering a new Renaissance era on every level. Where, the first $1 billion company with one employee is going to happen this year. It has to, right? If it hasn't already, and we just don't know about it. But it is exactly everything that you just said. So I think you're spot on with that. And it's really about the idea and then it's execution, right? These ideas have to come to market. They can be built quickly overnight with Claudebot doing most of the work, but then we've got to go out and prove product market fit really, really fast. We've got to have AI continuing to enhance it. So it's really how fast can you come up with the idea and how fast can you execute to customers? And that's the real game changer for it. So many different little learning nuggets, but I think it's the two questions I have as a follow-up to this learning piece for any one of you three is really this paradigm shift of 100 years ago, we moved from the farming into the factories, putting the widgets together. And then 20, 30 years ago, we moved out of the factory into this knowledge worker place. Now we're going to get to move out of knowledge worker into managing of bots, or what is this next evolution? Where should people be learning to grow into their careers, combined with how do you go back to that essence of learning? I think, Eli and I are strongly much tinkerers and failers because we just want to break it and fail fast through it so we can learn it and teach it to other people. But not everybody has that learning mindset. So how do you reset that learning mindset too? I'm curious if maybe Danny or Michael have a quick thought on that.
Mike, what do you think? I mean, entrepreneurs are sort of in that special space where they have a vision, they have an idea, and they will tinker with that idea. But now leveraging AI, so much more is accessible to them.
Yeah, I think kind of what we're talking about is the shortened runway to progressive failure, right? And I think that's an awesome way. How do you teach the mindset of failing forward? That's tricky, right? That comes down to heart and it comes down to grit and everything that we focus on for our founders at Escape Velocity. But what we're talking about is the opportunity to ideate execute and fail or success, you learn very quickly what works and doesn't work. So from the business perspective, and what we can do with AI built into these efficiencies is that we are able to get to failure or to success much quicker than we ever have before. And that learning process is kind of invaluable, especially when we talk about execution over ideation. Like, you can think about a process for 17 years, right? Or you can work together with these AI tool sets and you can start trying much quicker. You can execute much quicker. That analysis paralysis goes out the window because you have some sort of feedback loop that you can refer to. So I think that the experiential learning that comes from executing on a time frame that's enabled by AI, I think that's something that's really pushing forward in the modern day.
I like what you said too, where, it's not going to make you an expert overnight, but by tinkering, by testing, it'll give you enough context and knowledge to maybe look beyond the fence of a problem, what could have been a dead end for an idea or for a business, and then preparing you to actually meet with experts and make better, more informed decisions, like you said, at the speed of compute. So it's exciting, to have these options presented. And to your point, Bri, for those that don't want to work in the farm, you can use it. And for those that do and want to look at food, they'll use it as well.
That's right. That's right. I want to jump into the next segment here, but I think I didn't do escape velocity justice on its introduction here. So I would really love for one of you to kind of break it down, because I think it's important as we head into the leverage segment here, and especially the leadership segment, for everybody to truly understand what you're trying to build at escape velocity and where it's heading. So who wants to give me the breakdown on that for a minute or so?
I'll do a quick intro into EV.
Please.
Yeah. So escape velocity really is a passion, of entrepreneurs, designers, developers, and community creators. We listened and we saw this gap in the community to support, invest, and help early stage ideas get to market to prove themselves and become worthy of future investment. So, when companies, before they hockey stick, they need that sort of support. They may be held back by the gravity of their, industry, their vertical, their access to X, Y, and Z. And so our whole goal is, let's infuse capital, let's infuse services that are friendly for startups. Let's introduce technology where it makes sense, and then help them break away from that. So that is how they escape the gravity and they find their, escape velocity moment. So, we would probably need 3 other podcasts to really break down all the details of the program. But I would say at its core, Mike is really leading the first cohort of investments of early stage companies with brilliant founders who have done so much research and are now ready to prove. So it's just finding the right company at the right moment and then introducing them to Mike and the rest of the team.
So, leverage is really tied into this learning piece. Learning is really useless without being able to leverage it in some fashion. So let's talk into this execution piece of this. So what's one way each of you have sort of seen teams successfully apply AI? Not pilots, but like real usage. You guys have an example or two?
I think Eli's probably the best from his work over at Emergence right now. He's been doing some cool stuff.
Sure. So first, I feel like I should give a very short intro. So Emergence is an investment bank. We act as we're the intermediary. We're a broker dealer between those who have capital and those who are seeking capital. We're one of the sponsors of Escape Velocity, which is why I was invited this day. And we are, what is the gap point between those two systems? The research that goes into deciding where capital should be deployed. Right now, you have very well-paid, highly educated MBA grads out of Wharton coming and doing all this research. It is the perfect use case for AI. Do I think that we'll ever replace those brilliant students? I am not one of those people who thinks that. I do think that we can make capital flow faster, though.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what we're doing with our project right now, which is Emergence AI. And, it's a vectorized database that underlies a retrieval augmented structure to be able to give access to all of these data points. You have virtual data rooms and pitch decks and financial statements and emails and Slack channels and communications like this if there was an AI note taker here, and it's all in one place and natural language can use to access ideas like that, which makes the whole process go faster. And that's as you know, that's a multi-use case. It doesn't need to just be family offices. Pretty much anybody could use a tool like that. I'm happy to talk about that if we ever get another podcast. But as far as leveraging these tools to build something cool, as I mentioned earlier, being able to have them pilot any given app now can completely change what it is that we even need to be building. And that really makes the difference, because now we went from AI sitting at the core of an app or a bot in the corner to previously existing apps can be piloted by an AI structure that sits on your local machine on top of it. Completely different way of thinking about these things. And I have some meetings scheduled actually later this week to talk about, well, does that completely change how it is that we should be investing our money in the future? What is it that we're now, do we need to build AI at the core of apps, or do we just accept that the enterprise models beat us to the punch and that we just have to build good old fashioned apps that can be piloted by AI? I mean, this is we've entered a whole different world there.
And I think I struggle even as a fractional CTO trying to help advise companies like, do you build out the AI department that helps train the rest of the team? Because everybody in the company should be using it in some way, shape, or form. So like, how do we disseminate this? How do we automate every single piece of every department in some fashion? Not like fully automate it, like, so we don't need the humans, but like help them leverage the speed of what the computer brought to us or what the internet brought to us. And now AI is bringing to us, like, we'll be able to do 10x more work with the same 8-hour day if we're using these tools in our day-to-day workflows. And I showcase this to teams all the time, but it's still that question of how do you help unlock it? And maybe that's a little bit of a question for Michael of how do you design learning so that behavior at the company actually changes? Is that an interesting angle to go down for the leverage?
Well, I would just say, just from a top-down perspective, I saw something on Wall Street Journal. It was basically saying that C-suite executives are 10 times more likely to use AI on a day-to-day basis for XYZ hours compared to their workforces. Yeah. So what that kind of explains to you from like a high-level perspective is that not only is AI being utilized for enhanced decision-making at C-suite levels, but maybe that value isn't being articulated down to the workforce. So the lucky privilege that I have is that we are typically dealing with smaller founder teams, right? And a majority of them have been hearing AI, so they kind of know that it has to be integrated into their process somehow. We're not talking about like the massive 500 plus, 1,000 plus employees. So being able to start from the ground level with these founders, working closely with them, and being able to explain and show them how much quicker they can move if they integrate these into their teams, we kind of have a leg up already, right?
Yeah.
So then moving from that, making sure that they understand the value of it at the high level, and then translating that process down to the actual teams and their day-to-day work, that's where we kind of find our sweet spot in working with the smaller teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say right size it, right, Mike? We're lucky with entrepreneurs that they are the tip of the spear. And so they will apply and learn and try because it's the survival of their idea, of their company. At a much bigger company, it's so much more complex. And I've done this with enterprises where it really starts with trust. It starts with culture and right sizing. This is why we're going to use it, or how. And one of the best use cases was preparing and educating designers and behavioral, scientists on the impact of leveraging AI early on and what it could have on, ethics, human rights, etc. if we don't understand, its power, its potential, and being able to respect that in decisions that we make, because, one decision that's quick or rushed could also impact millions. So how do we bring that context to the conversation before it's too late?
I love it. I mean, I think that's one of the heartfelt differences between like I call it AI theater and the AI advantage, right? Like there's a lot of AI theater happening right now. Yeah. So that, that's a perfect segue into talking about leadership. AI changes the power dynamics. It's changing roles. It's changing like confidence levels with employees. So like, how do leaders bring teams along on this journey without overwhelming them and, proving ROI as we go? Like there's so many questions here at the leadership level.
I'd love to start with that one. Is that okay, Danny?
Yeah, go ahead.
Super quick. I just wanted to address that quick point about how AI changes the power dynamic. Mike and I are actually fantastic examples of this. Mike and I have only entered the field that we're in the last few years of our lives, actually as it catapulted ahead as a result of these AI tools. I was but a mere, business analyst working for 3M a few years ago when AI dropped. And I said at the end of 22, guys, the world is about to change.
Yeah.
And they didn't believe me. And I said, you know what? I can do this on my own. I'm leaving.
Up until very recently, I was working for the DOT as a engineer too. So, I got in touch with these technologies, and it's like shifted the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to say that really does, the power dynamic is entirely different. The importance of staying with these tools is critical.
I mean, and I see this day to day. Like, I am a hired gun to a degree. I am your fractional CTO that you're pulling into a project, right? And up until AI went, when I said something, they respected that. Maybe they would try and Google search it and see if there was a different answer. But now they can take the transcript, they can feed exactly what I said into the AI and get counter arguments and counterbalance questions. So even C-level authority is being questioned every chance they can. But like, I still feel very confident in my answers, even if Jeopardy tells me a different answer. Sometimes it's like, yeah, but it didn't have full context. It didn't know about this situation. So like, but it is changing these power dynamics at this leadership level in a big way. So what questions should our executives be asking their teams right now, but they usually aren't?
So I would hand that one to you, Danny, unless you want me to take it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think in very specific scenarios. I know that one of the most difficult connections that any large corporation could have, so if you're a CTO, CIO, is making sure that everyone that's doing work feels connected to the customer. Mm-hmm. So I would say, are you appropriately inviting your teams to participate? Is everybody, again, invited at the table at the right degree, at the same level and opportunity? And then are you also presenting an opportunity that makes that journey worthwhile? That says not only will it create better connections to the work that you're doing and why, but also that, there are reward systems for the adoption, for the proof of using AI systems in helping an idea either get better or a company grow or an individual, become a leader. Mm-hmm. So that simple investment and return on, someone's career growth would be critical for talent. And I think it also allows an opportunity for workforce development. Someone who maybe is coming from a background that hasn't traditionally had access, to higher education or technology, mm-hmm. that they are allowed to prove themselves and then celebrated.
Yeah.
Eli, what were you thinking? I'm curious.
So to stick with Brian, I'm a little bit more of a nerd on this stuff. To me, the real answer is, AI, you could really break it down into one thing. If you have context, you will get great decisions. And so how is it that you can provide context for C-suite decision-making? Well, make sure that it is aware of everything that happens. Every conversation that you have with any given AI tool, make sure that it has full context of it. Create a soul.md file, take the whole conversation, paste it in there. It'll sit in your directory, and it'll know that. Every time you have a meeting with somebody, record it with whatever your preferred tool is, Granola, Otter, Fireflies, doesn't matter. Take those transcripts and create a personality file, your personality file. Put that in another file in the directory. Make sure that that's sitting in there. Anytime you ask a question, you have full context of everything, and it'll allow you to make true decisions. Upload it with Danny is a brilliant guy and he knows what he knows because he's read about it. What are the books that he's read that allows him to make those decisions? Upload that in there. Then take the transcripts of whatever calls that you need to make decisions about and have it improve your decision making. I mean, we've democratized access to PwC and KPMG level consulting. I mean, it's a brilliant thing.
I agree completely. I'm telling teams more and more and more that the software development lifecycle is just completely flipped upside down for leaders, right? Because we have to do exactly what you were saying, Eli, to go and spend 2 months planning. Get me every personality, every book, every expertise subject thing. And then we feel really solid about the plan that we have as a leadership team. And then say, go execute. And you'll be blown away that we can execute that in 48 hours. But it took 2 months of planning probably and beating it up and thinking through it and everything else. And that's like, before it would be like, okay, 2 months of planning and then it's 2 years of building and then a couple of months to deploy it and figure out how do we get it out the door. But, so like this middle section is completely removed or it's 10x shrunk in size. And we have got to spend more time teaching how to plan, how to create assets and research and customer discovery and everything else to make sure when we do go to market, it goes to market successfully. So are you seeing that with some of the startups that you get to work with?
Yeah, I think what you just described are the fundamentals, right? So the fundamentals have not changed.
Yeah.
The fundamentals of go-to-market, the fundamentals of business, those have not changed, right? It's just how we get access to them has changed drastically and the time frame we get there. So as far as teaching the fundamentals and then teaching how to bring AI to shorten those time frames, that's still kind of the core on what everything is built on. Because you can't build a castle in a swamp.
But it's that question of like just-in-time delivery or whatever that is, right? Yeah, I mean, because we would only plan 1 week because I knew I had 3 months before that piece would be ready. So I can keep planning while you're building. So there's something weird happening of like, we almost have to go back to waterfall because the
time that actually would happen. So this happened to me just like 2 weeks ago. I planned with my engineering team and originally what the bill of work I would have thought would have taken 4 months. They were done in 3 weeks. And I was like, guys, I got to redo the product roadmap. And I had in my old head how I make a product roadmap. And I was like, well, that's not going to work either. And that's what I told you at the beginning of this call, right? Like I was able to actually make it go way faster because the entire cycle is different. Now we're in the amazing stage of getting to work with businesses. We get to work with escape velocity. I get to talk to the people about what it is that they think is going to make it better, which is the fun part, right?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like we've skipped right to the fun part all the time. It's so cool.
And that's why my wife is yelling at me for talking to Telegram late at night for my OpenClaw to do more work because it's already done with all the stuff I gave it earlier today. That's just phenomenal. Any other quick thoughts on the leadership piece that you wanted to explain with us?
I think Danny kind of touched on it earlier, but broaden your mind to what talent looks like. I've heard on your podcast before, Brian, that you talk about the bottom rung kind of disappearing, right? The lowest entry point. Because we work a lot with like the local student body and trying to introduce these innovations to the entrepreneurs that we work with and kind of lift up talent from there. I think it's important for the leaders right now to understand that what you thought talent looked like in the past has also changed drastically in the 3 years, right? So these traditional routes of education and where you can find external education through YouTube or Notebook LLM, right? All these other pathways that you can get there. Like me and Eli have found our own pathways and it wasn't through colleges, right? But I think what we can do is reframe what talent looks like. And I think that's a massive door to keep open for leaders in the current age.
I love it. I am interviewing a lot of senior software developer positions right now for some of my clients. And I care a little bit less on if you know React versus whatever XYZ thing you need to know. I want to know, how are you going to unlock AI to help you do your job faster? Nice. And I'm still finding that people don't have a good enough answer to that. Like there's still a lot of learning to do. They aren't caught up to me. And like we talked about earlier, like I'm a C-suite, I'm using AI 12 times a day, whereas your average developer didn't have permission yet or doesn't want to, is challenging their job in some fashion. So much to do. So mention this podcast if you're interviewing with me, and you'll get some major kudos points with me.
Very
for
cool.
sure.
Yeah.
So
it'll be
talk
automatically
about,
added to the weight
that's
scale.
right. Exactly.
That's great. Mike,
I mean,
I was just going to say, just in terms of leadership, probably my one piece that I'm excited for, and I'm sort of in the middle, I see the opportunity of leveraging AI for entrepreneurs and early ideas, but then also interested to see where policy goes. How is it, business friendly, but also still protecting data and privacy? How can we solve, civic challenges that are very real and typically very difficult? So if it can make those easier to be solved, I think we're going to see more adoption and greater use in our everyday lives. So it's an exciting moment. It's like we've got the speed and the ability, and now it's the careful application moment.
That's right.
So, I just don't think we can roll back as the one thing. It's, can you imagine going back to without AI?
Pandora's box is open, man. We're not going back.
It's already
We found fire.
Yeah.
My whole career has been built off of the fact the internet became something. So yeah, we can't go back. I agree. But I think, Danny, that summarizes leadership in a big way, right? Like our job is to reduce the fear, increase that clarity, and help build this momentum that we need our teams to go forward with. So. Well, Danny, Michael, Eli, thank you so much for being here. This was a really grounded, practical, and exactly what leaders need to hear right now, I think. So we appreciate you being here. Please give a shout out. How do we get in touch with you? How do people watching this show learn more and reach out?
Wow. I would say follow us on LinkedIn, look at Escape Velocity, and follow the first cohort of great entrepreneurs that are being invested in and supported. I would say, we were connected through 1 Million Cups, great program. So we are in Hartford, but I know they are across the nation. Great conversations with entrepreneurs. Those are my two quick takeaways to stay connected. How about you, Mike and Eli?
Yeah, I'm big on LinkedIn. I will literally accept pretty much every request. I think that the next big breakthrough that you have is just 2 people removed. So I'm all about building those networks out. And then, that's pretty much how to get me.
So I'm same, very easy to find me. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, it's Elijah Gutman, ElijahGutman. And as far as, you could also find Umergence, which is just concept of emergence, but with a U, and you'll be able to find me on there. And always eager to talk. I do a little bit of fractional consulting myself.
Awesome. I will make sure all of those links are in our show notes. So check out the links down below this video if you're watching it, and you can get directly connected to the team here. If you're listening and you want to move faster with AI without breaking your organization, I'm going to definitely make sure that link to Escape Velocity is down below. And check out all the other links that we mentioned today in the show notes. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. This has been AI with Bry. So get out there and learn, leverage, and lead. We'll see you next time. This episode of AI with Bry was hosted and produced by me, Brian Denstead. Produced with help from Nancy Velasquez and Kelly Lopez. Video by Leo Moralina. Sound AI generated. Find us on all platforms at AI with Bry and visit ai.bry.net for more. Learn, leverage, lead.